Welcome to the Wisconsin Investor Podcast. I'm your host, Corey Raymond.
Oh, hey there, guy.
Each week, we bring you interviews with some of Wisconsin's top real estate investors who share their tips, tricks, and strategies that you can implement right away.
Oh, crepes.
This show is dedicated to helping Wisconsin real estate investors elevate their game. Along with interviews, I'll also dive into hot topics and solo episodes and feature experts from various real estate sectors across Wisconsin.
You betcha.
So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Wisconsin Investor Podcast Show. I'm your host, Corey Raymond. And today I have an exciting guest here, my good old buddy who we've met through real estate, Mr. Frank Rick. Frank, how you doing today?
Real good, Corey. It's a beautiful day outside on the patio here, and I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to chat with you because you've got quite a bit of experience in investing in Wisconsin. And so we have a lot of folks listening here in Wisconsin and people outside of Wisconsin that are considering maybe investing in Wisconsin. So I'm really excited to dive into it with you. So let's get right into it, Frank. When did you get started investing in real estate?
We started in the mid 1990s.
Okay.
And so we've been at it 30 plus years.
Wow.
We've seen a lot of good times. We've seen some tough times. 2008 was challenging. But it does well over time, right? So
Yeah.
we're glad we got in when we did. We were probably in our mid 30s at that time. So, we got a little bit of a late start, but money wasn't as available then as it is today.
Okay. All right. Let's talk about that for a second. What are some of the biggest changes that you've seen in your 30 years? What are the pros of today's investing market, and what are some of the things that, maybe when you started were a little bit easier?
Today, you see banks that are a lot more investor friendly. They have a lot of different products to offer. You have your hard money lenders out there, your DSCR loans, and stuff like that. So it's a whole different area of financing today than it was, say 30 years ago. Then it was the conventional ways. You had to have your 20% down somehow, and you went to the bank and waited for their good graces and stuff like that. So it's a changing financial end of it. So it makes it a lot easier today, but you have to build those relationships with your lender, and stuff, and it becomes easier.
Sure. Okay. When you started, was there anything back then that was easier then than it is now?
Not really, because then, you had to look in the newspaper for open houses. There was no wholesaling. If it was pretty hidden. A lot of the like the apartment associations that we belong to, the people were real secretive with the information. You'd ask them questions, they wouldn't tell you much. You ask them who their plumber was, they wouldn't tell you, because if you were using their plumber, it might interfere with when they needed it and stuff like that. So information was pretty secretive, but those people are from generations before us, and I guess that's just how it was. Now you have the internet. You can look at so many different places in a short amount of time. You can look up tax bills. Otherwise, before I had to go to the courthouse, pull the file out, and look at everything and stuff. It was a lot more cumbersome back then, but doable.
So the barrier to entry for real estate investing now is a lot lower than it used to be, just based on the information that people have, is what you're saying.
Yes, pretty much so. Yeah, it's a lot. It's also more aggressive, because it is easier. You
got more people trying to get into it, more people competition wise. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. What types of investing do you guys do, Frank? So it's you and your wife Patty who invest together, right?
Yep.
And what do you guys invest in? Are you flipping? Are you wholesaling? Are you buy and hold? Are you commercial? Are you residential? Tell us a little bit about what types of investing you do.
We started out with just buy and hold, residential long term. Okay. And just recently, within the last couple of years, we did some short term stuff. we stay within our area. We have about maybe a 50-mile radius of where we live is where we stay.
Okay.
That's the market that we know. We have commercial and we do flip houses. Everything that pretty much that we buy is off market. It's with wholesalers or word of mouth. Everybody that we come in contact to, we tell them, hey, we're into real estate when they ask you what you do. So we have a pretty good sized social circle. So everybody knows that, we're interested in buying houses. So sometimes a family member passes or has to go to an assisted living situation, people call us, hey, you want to buy my mom's house, or stuff like that. So a lot of stuff finds us. The commercial property that we have is a strip mall. There's 10 commercial tenants. It's a very nice property. It's about 20 years old. That was probably about a year and a half ago that we bought that. It'll be 2 years in October. So very nice performing property.
Okay. Now let's talk about that for a second. So how did you get that deal? Why did you go to that deal? Was that your first commercial deal? Tell me a little bit about how that one came to be.
Our first commercial property was a storage business, a mini warehouse facility.
Oh, sure.
And we had that for about 20 years. We decided, and that one we managed ourselves. So, we're out there plowing the snow, cutting the grass, managing the tenants or, the people that rent the spaces. And what we did is we did a 1031 exchange and bought some side-by-side duplexes, turned them over to management, and they perform the same as what we had. Now we don't have to do any managing and stuff.
Oh,
and
nice.
So that was our first commercial property. Now we bought this strip mall, and we tried buying that for the last 10 years. The seller just wasn't ready to sell. Now he wanted to retire. So I hadn't seen him in about 2 years. And we were out one evening and we ran across him, and I asked him if he wanted to sell the strip mall. He said, sure. So my next question was if he would consider any seller financing.
Yeah.
And he said, for you guys, I would, because we knew him, it helped the process, right?
Okay.
So we had known him for probably 25 years. So he was comfortable with the deal. That was a big project to purchase that property. And, so we solicited 7 different banks.
Okay.
And started narrowing it down. Some weren't even interested in the deal. They would have been at about 40% loan to value in the first mortgage position, which is a good spot to be, right? So,
wow. If you're the bank, yes.
Some wanted, this, that. So we sorted it out down to one lender, and it's been working very well. The seller, if he would have sold it and took all the money out at one time, his capital gain would have been so huge, his gain tax, that he agreed to do the seller financing over a period of time and to help make the deal go. And he got his asking price also. So,
nice.
There's some trade-offs.
Sure.
A very good property. We have a commercial manager that takes care of all the leases and all of the, we had a couple tenant turnovers. So we had to do some build outs and stuff like that, but a very good performing property.
That's awesome, Frank. I love that. So you guys have done a little bit of everything. It sounds like some seller finance stuff, some commercial stuff, residential flip, short-term rental. I mean, you've kind of done in 30 years. It sounds like you've got experience kind of in a lot of different areas here, huh?
Yeah, diversity is good. You spread it around a few different places, and you get a little bit of fluctuation with each, right? So, but in the last, I would say the last 5 years, it's just been a robust market in all the sectors. If it's short-term, long-term, commercial, flipping, the last 5 years have really been good.
Is this the best 5 years you've seen in your 30-year history, Frank, as far as real estate investing goes?
Almost definitely.
Okay. All
most
right.
definitely. Even even years prior to that, it's been good. Ever since like '08 when that happened, we all know what happened then.
Yeah.
There was a lot of foreclosures, and we did a lot of buying then.
Mm,
The stuff that we had, we were able to keep. A lot of people went bankrupt. We were in a good
yeah.
position that we didn't, have those issues. Um, so a lot of foreclosures were taking place. So we did a lot of buying at that time,
Sure.
and at deep discounts. So
Yeah.
we always look for, you know, when we buy through wholesalers, a lot of times it's value add properties, stuff like that.
Mhm.
It's rare that we would buy anything off the MLS. If we need to complete a 1031 exchange and the time is running out, we may look to the MLS for a property
Okay.
fast.
Okay.
And that would be about it.
Okay, got it. Cool. I want to go back to something that I've been picking up on this, and hopefully our listeners are picking up on this as well, Frank, as they're listening to you talk. A lot of what you're describing is maintaining a good reputation, being trustworthy, and having good, strong relationships with a lot of different people that I'm seeing is attributed a lot to your success. So you talked about the commercial guy. Well, that was a 10-year nurturing that you had to do with that guy to get that thing to go. Your lender, you got to have great relationships with your lenders. I know you and I talk all the time, and you're always talking about how, oh, we got this other deal from so and so. We were at the tavern and we were talking. And it's just like a lot of what I'm noticing that's attributed to a lot of your and Patty's success, just building a lot of relationships with a lot of people and maintaining a good name, doing it the right way. It sounds like. I mean, anything you want to speak to on that for the listeners, as far as people who are hearing you and maybe thinking of getting into real estate investing?
Absolutely. Having a good reputation is key. We've had tenants that, they moved out of the area. They came back, they call us, hey, do you have any place, they want to come back and rent from us. Um, Networking is huge.
Mhm.
We belong to the RIA groups in the area, the REI success meetings, caffeine and cash flow, apartment associations. And it's that networking that's huge. There's times where I've made an announcement at a RIA meeting. Hey, I'm looking for a property of certain kind or whatever. And at the end of the meeting, somebody comes up, hey, I have one like that I would sell, and stuff. So networking, talking to people, having a large social circle, which we have, just maintaining all those relationships all the way around. It's been very good to us. But you know, you, your personality is part of it. You have to be an interesting individual as
Mhm.
well. To talk to people and stuff like that. So it helps.
Yeah. Oh, totally, for sure. I mean, I just wanted to pound that point home that I was hearing of a lot of the success is coming from personal relationships that you've spent the time developing and maintaining, and not because you want a deal out of it either. That's the other thing, Frank. Anybody who knows you
No,
and
not at
Patty,
all.
it's not because you're manipulating and trying to get a deal. It's just who you guys are. You're just great at building
Right.
relationships with people and maintaining those. So I think that's great. What areas do you guys invest in geographically in Wisconsin?
We live in between Lake Winnebago and Lake Michigan, so we have about a 50-mile radius that we operate. There are
Okay.
certain areas in that 50-mile radius that are not in our buy box.
Okay.
We buy in Green Bay, Fox Valley, Sheboygan Falls, and some of the smaller towns in between,
Okay.
Elkhart Lake, stuff like that. So we stick with the areas that are more robust. There's some cities within that 50-mile radius that we just don't do business in.
What is it about some of those areas that is a turn off for you guys when you're talking about your buy box? What are, for those listeners out there, what are, just to give them some ideas of some things that you guys are looking at?
One city in particular, and I won't mention which one it is, but there's a lot of flooding when it rains,
Mm,
and I don't know the area well enough to know where those flooding areas are and stuff like that is one thing. Um, some cities are a little more distressed than others. There's no job growth. You know, like Appleton is very robust.
Mm.
We like the west side of Green Bay. Just great areas. It costs you a little more to operate there, but it's well worth it.
Sure. Yeah, perfect. Um, you mentioned now before you guys had the commercial space that you were managing yourself, then you bought the duplexes, turned it over to management. Obviously, it sounds like you're a fan of property management. Talk to me about, were you guys always managing properties before, and when did you make that shift and why, and what were some of the outcomes that you noticed by turning it over to management, or what did it allow you guys to do?
Sure. We self-managed for probably 20 years.
Wow.
And just in the last, I would say the last 10 plus years, that there have been good managers all over. At years ago, there would be a manager, they would just manage, say, in Sheboygan. They wouldn't come out to Kiel or New Holstein or Chilton or, the little outlying cities. So, and a lot of times they were realtors and stuff. So
Mm,
they just managed within their areas. Today, there's so many management companies that are good.
mm.
Um, by having a professional manager, that's their everyday business, right? So when Patty and I did the managing, we're raising a family at the same time. So maybe there was a day that I was supposed to serve a 5 day notice and I couldn't get there for some reason. Maybe there was a basketball game or something that I had to go to after work, right? We both worked full time. And the efficiency that a management company can bring to the table is well worth the fees that you pay them. We have right now, currently, we have 5 management companies that
Wow.
work for us. One is commercial, one is short term. There's 2 that are short term because they're
Okay.
in different areas,
Okay.
and 2 residential.
Wow.
And they all do very well for us. It takes the burden off of you.
Sure.
They have all the databases for doing the background checking, doing credit rating reports, and they have all these subscriptions to all those databases where,
Yeah.
and it's vital to finding good tenants. By doing it yourself, I mean, if management companies that manage hundreds of units, they're using and utilizing those databases quite often, whereas a
Mhm.
small operator or private person, it would cost too much to have access to all that for the little bit of use that you would be using it, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
um the other thing, they stay up to date with all the laws, and
Mhm.
it's a forever changing um legislative situation. It's like discrimination, and all the different laws that apply. You have to be so careful. It takes that monkey off of our back, and it is all those responsibilities are then with the manager, and it
Yeah.
just, like I said, for the fees that they charge, it's well worth it. I would recommend anybody hiring professional management. It's just a lot smoother.
Yeah. I always joke around with people when they're looking at getting into investing and they're talking to me about, like, hey, how do I get started and all that stuff. And I'm coaching them, and I'll say, well, what are you planning to do for management? And they say, well, we're probably going to self-manage for a while. And I'm like, okay, well, call me in a couple of years when you want to sell those properties at a discount to me because you're sick of managing. Because there's, unless you're built, I mean, some people are built for it. Some people, they love it. So I'm not discounting it. It works great for some people. But I would say, if I was going to say the majority of people, their best time spent in real estate investing, Frank, and I'm interested to hear your opinion on this. This is what I preach a lot: is you, if you can find deals, find money, and build your team. Those are the 3 main activities, are the highest income producing activities you can do in real estate investing. What are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. Um, our time is best spent buying,
Mhm.
right? So searching and buying properties. Uh, Managing will turn you into a person you don't want to be sometimes. It's just a fact of the matter, dealing with tenants and their situations and whatever. It'll turn you into a person you don't want to be once in a while. So yeah, like I said before, it's worth every penny that you spend with them, just for the efficiency and the results.
Yeah.
The other thing that we've done is, years ago, when we first started out, you started with the older upstairs, downstairs, the 100-year-old houses
Yep.
and stuff like that. And we've over time been able to shift to more modern properties. What we look
Oh,
for now is stuff that was built probably the oldest in the mid 60s.
okay.
The codes, the building codes are so much different. All the wiring is grounded. You don't have asbestos, you don't have knob and tube, all that kind of stuff.
Sure.
So we've weeded out those very old properties. We still have like two of them that are in very good condition that we'll probably hold on to, but for the most part, we've transformed into side by side duplexes and stuff like that, fourplex units. But yeah, nothing that's really old and dungeon basements and stuff like that.
Sure.
We tried it. We weeded that out.
That's cool that you can, but you started where you had to start, right? With
Right.
those older ones, and you get into it, you get them going. They're good assets, but at some point, basically, like what you talked about earlier, 1031 exchange, you're trading up into, you're kind of playing Monopoly here now. You took the single family house, turned it into a hotel and some, quote unquote hotel. It sounds like you're utilizing the strategy that Monopoly taught us as kids.
Right. It's kind of like a chess game. You have to analyze every move before you make it. Look at all the ins and outs, what it's going to do
Mm-hmm.
before and after. It's a chess game. You know, you have to be good at making great decisions, right? So
Sure.
to be successful at it, you'll make some mistakes along the way, minor mistakes. You learn from that and build off of it, and don't make that mistake again.
Yeah.
But we do have a professional team. You have your accountants, you have your attorneys, you have your bankers, realtors, wholesalers. The list goes on and on.
Yeah.
Management people and stuff. And you know at, at any given time, if I have a question about something, I just call one of the people on my professional team
Mm.
and I have an answer, right? So and there's, even though we've been in the business as long as we have, we still don't know everything.
Sure.
With the way markets change, you have to be able to pivot on certain things sometimes. Keep an open mind, and just look at what the trends are. And by going to the like the RIA groups and the REI Success Group, and talking to other people and seeing what's going on within our markets, it helps us stay in tune.
Yeah, no, that's really good advice. Management. Now, going back, you said you have five management companies that are managing your properties. How many doors do you guys have currently that you have for holding between the commercial, short term, and long term
Uh,
stuff?
the commercial, the commercial is 10 tenants.
Okay.
Um, we have two short-term rentals, so there's two different managers because they're quite a ways apart.
Okay.
And then we have two residential long-term management companies, and one management company will do a rehab for us,
Mm.
and then they rent it out, and the other one doesn't have that capability. So I would say there's probably just off the top of my head close to 30 units between those two. And like I said, they're mostly side by side duplexes. So
Okay.
and some fourplexes.
So, how much
Um,
time a month, Frank, would you say you're quote unquote managing the portfolio?
in a month's time, the busy time is at the first of the month, like right now. Um, you know, going over statements and stuff like that. Once every quarter, we look at our whole portfolio, property by property,
Mm,
and evaluate.
I love that.
And the way what we look at is, okay, this property A, what is it going to need for capex in the next 1 year, 3 years, 5 years? How long have we held that property? How is it performing? Look at your profit and loss statement. If it needs a lot of capex in 5 years, maybe we should consider selling it and buying a different property. So we study the properties quarterly, and how they're performing, what they're going to need, and stuff like that. And in a month's time, hours wise, I would say less than 40 hours, and a lot of that time is spent searching for properties.
Okay.
So,
So that's
um,
not really managing the assets you currently have. You're just talking about being in the business in general of
right,
real estate.
day
Okay.
day to day, I don't know. In a month's time, I would say even maybe hour a day, you
Wow.
know,
Yeah,
roughly.
that's cool.
Um, hour and a half a day, something like that. Some days it's more, some days you don't even have any involvement.
Yeah, I love that. That I love your point about the evaluating the assets that you currently own. I mean, that's something as you're talking, I'm like, I need to start figuring out a system for that, Frank. So you and I can maybe talk offline of your system, but
Sure.
just trying to understand, like looking at the properties themselves. We've just been acquiring, and then we have the Wisconsin discount property business that we're running the day-to-day stuff on, so that takes up most of our time. 4 kids, all this stuff, but like we really should be doing what you're doing, and every quarter sitting down and going, okay, which of the properties that we hold are performing, or could we trade in this property for something maybe a little bit nicer, or something, some other thing, some other life goal that we want to achieve. Maybe it's not even financial, maybe it's just more of a nicer asset that we want to own because we want to own a nicer, could be something like that. But what do you take us through that real briefly? When you're evaluating them, are you strictly looking at how they're performing, or what factors do you and Patty look at when you're deciding what you're going to do, or you're going to keep or move on? You said the capex was
Well,
one.
yep, capex is a huge one.
Okay.
Like roofs. If it needs a 12 to 15 thousand dollar roof in say 3 to 5 years, maybe it's time to pass that on. It
Mm-hmm.
depends on what your cash flow is on the place.
Yeah.
Um, One thing that we look at is the longer that you hold a property. Say it's 20 plus years, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, the I guess I'm looking for the best word to describe it. It's not as attractive as an investment the longer you have it. So it's time to roll that one out and buy something different. Your interest that you pay on your mortgage gets less and less. So that deduction starts decreasing over time. Say you've had it 27 years, your depreciation is gone. Just stuff like that. So as you hold them longer, they become less attractive as an investment. So you have to evaluate them. You have to know how they're performing. Weed out the bad ones. You're from your accountant, you get a profit and loss statement. You look at that, and you compare it against the rest. And the good performers, you always want to keep those, and the ones on the lower end. And it happens. It just happens. Sure, you might have a great cash flow on it, but it's going to need some major improvements. It's time to maybe let it go. you
Yeah,
know
that's great.
um I'm sure everybody has their own formulas on that. It's just what works well for us.
Yeah, that's awesome. I that's one nugget I'm implementing right after we hang this call up, Frank. I gotta start evaluating my assets a little bit better than just kind of holding on, and they might be a turd, and I could probably turn it into a gold nugget, but
Sure.
gotta evaluate it and understand what we got to understand what kind of decisions to make, right? Talk to me, Frank, about the lenders. So you talked about lending being easier now. What are some of the? You said you mentioned hard money. What are the types of lending you use, and talk to us about why you use certain lenders for different things. And you don't have to name the lenders, but just the type of investor
Sure.
or lender.
When we're buying wholesale properties, a lot of times you might have to move a little quicker than what like a conventional loan would allow. You know, there might be a house that you have a 2 week window. So to make that happen, like with a conventional loan in 2 weeks would be very difficult.
Mhm.
Probably most likely impossible. Uh, because of the cumbersome process that it is, right? So sometimes we'll look at commercial loans. They're a lot easier. Not all banks do them. Sometimes we'll go hard money, stuff like that. The
Yeah.
hard money process is probably the quickest. Might cost you a little bit more, but if there's a deal lurking out there and you don't want to pass it up, and hard money is your only option, do it. And then usually like a hard money lender will want an exit plan within 6 months of how you're going to refinance it, right? So you should get pre-approved with a secondary lender before you do the hard money loan, and it's not that hard to do. um,
Yeah.
and actually we're in that process right now,
Okay.
and sometimes several deals pop up at the same time, and you hate to pass one up. um, you might have, say, a commercial lender tied up with another deal, and then all of a sudden another property shows up that,
Sure.
hey, I should buy that. So
Yeah.
hard money is another option. So
Yeah.
it's just a lot more options out there for financing today. 30 years ago, there was no hard money lending that I ever saw. It was just, conventional. Bring your 20%. You can do a little leveraging. You had to stay within the margins of equity on your leveraging properties and stuff.
Hmm.
But it was a whole different game at that time, if you want to
Yeah.
call it a game, right? But
Yeah. Yeah. I love
so
that.
much so much easier today.
I love having different buckets of money. Like we talked to a lot of people
Right.
about home equity lines of credit as well. So many people have equity in their houses, or if they don't own a house, they rent. They know somebody who's owned a house for the last 5 years. And if somebody's owned a house for the last 5 years, they've probably got a lot of dead money, as we call it, just sitting in their house, not going to
Right.
work. So they could pull that equity, pay their buddy a percent or give them a percent of the deal for using their line of credit. And that could be their down payment money or their rehab money or something like that. And the hard money lenders, like you said, they're great when you don't want to pass a deal up or you don't have any other options at that point. You don't have a portfolio yet to show a commercial bank, those kinds of things. So that's great. Appreciate you sharing that, Frank. Talk to me. Let's shift gears here quick. Tell our audience, is there a favorite town, place, restaurant, some favorite place for you and Patty in Wisconsin? Where would, if you had to pick one spot you could go, where would you go and why?
One of our favorite eating places, I'll mention, the name is Schwartz's in St. Anne. It's a
Okay.
supper club. It's very good. It's close by,
Oh,
and
supper club.
we usually run into a bunch of people that we know there, and actually that's the place where we got the strip mall deal sealed up.
Oh,
So,
nice. And
uh,
it's even nicer. You like it even more now.
right.
Yeah.
And coincidentally, we had bought a house in Sheboygan, and we sold it to a couple that we knew,
Okay.
and we took them out to eat to Schwartz's, and that happened to be the night that we ran into the fella that had the strip mall. So it
Okay.
just, killed two
Just
birds with one stone right there. So
deals getting done all the time at Schwartz's. I love it. You
yeah,
mentioned this is kind of fun for our out-of-state listeners. You mentioned supper club. That's a Wisconsin tradition. Tell our out-of-state listeners, what is the supper club experience like here in Wisconsin, and why should they attend when they come to visit a supper club?
there's quite a few supper clubs and good supper clubs, they all have their own atmosphere. It's very relaxed, and you go and have a couple old fashions, and that seems to be
Now, those are
the
Wisconsin old fashions, not the
right.
old fashions of everywhere else, right? So they're a little bit different than the old fire breath that you get when you go order old fashioned somewhere else, right?
Yeah. and that seems to be the drink of choice a lot of times, you go there, wait for your table a little bit, and then they call you in, and you go have your meal, and usually it's a good steak dinner, or seafood, and good variety on the menus, and just yeah, it's kind of a Wisconsin tradition thing. I travel outside the area, and I don't see a lot of supper clubs
No,
elsewhere.
no, it's a Wisconsin thing. You got to visit one if you're coming to Wisconsin. Frank, before we let you roll here, if anybody wants to get a
Sure.
hold of you, if they want to reach out, ask any questions about anything we talked about today, what's a good way for them to get a hold of you?
Probably email is f.rick, RICK 41 at yahoo.com. Or, I'll even give out my phone number, 920-918-6013. You can text or call me, I will put a disclaimer out there. Free real estate advice is worth as much as you're paying for
I love that. Frank, now you're going to be getting a bunch of calls and texts at 2 a.m. from
Sure,
people at
that's fine.
Schwartz coming to pick you up after having too many old
Right?
fashions, right?
Just don't ask to borrow money from me. That's all.
There you go. I love it. Frank, any final words for the audience here before we let you get on with this beautiful day?
Sure. Some people have and I think it's a misconception. They say, "Well, I'm going to wait till market comes down, or there's going to be a crash, and then I'm going to buy." It's never a bad time to buy. It's always good. The sooner you get in there and purchase some property, the better off you are. Some of the markets that we're in, there's 10+% appreciation. You'll never make that up by waiting, right? So the sooner you educate yourself on managing properties, buying properties, and that's the key is to educate yourself first before you actually jump in there and start buying properties and try and manage them. I always use the scenario of, you wouldn't buy a restaurant and then go and learn how to cook, right?
Right.
So,
Right.
learn the process, and the sooner the better that you start buying, the better off you'll be.
That's so good. I love that advice. And you mentioned even for learning how to manage, the beautiful part now is if you get around some of the local groups wherever you're located, there's real estate meetup groups. Even if you're out of state and you're not quite sure, just going to meet people and talking to them about how they manage properties or how they do these things. And then, build some relationships if you're out of state or out of the area with people who are local, and find a great property management company. And that eliminates a lot of that learning curve. Right.
Right,
When we
right.
started, one of our early mentors told us to self-manage at first. And now we joke together that was terrible advice. He admits, like, yeah, I should have never told you that. You should have just got management and kept growing and not worried about trying to learn the leases and the laws and all this stuff. Not that you shouldn't know that stuff, but it can stunt people's growth sometimes. And so now, like you said, Frank, with some of these management companies, that eliminates some of that hurdle of getting started, that it's like just learning, okay, what is a good deal for me? Who are my lenders I need to get? What other people do I need to have on my team, like the bookkeepers and the accountants and the real estate attorneys and those kinds of things. So that can eliminate a lot of that startup. But I love that. I did a YouTube video not that long ago from the time we're recording this about the wealth gap, or the wealth cone, I call it, of, you mentioned the appreciation. The other thing you got in over 30 years is tenants paying off your debt for you. So while the market appreciated, your tenants paid the debt down, and it just created this huge equity spread for you, which is so powerful over time. So I love that advice, but you can't get that equity spread if you don't buy.
That's right. Absolutely.
Yep. Awesome, Frank. Well, thanks so much for hopping on, man. This has been awesome. I learned a lot. I got some notes I'm taking away here today that I'm going to be implementing right away. So hopefully all of you guys listening got some good nuggets from Frank today. If you guys are looking for off-market deals, go to wisconsindiscountproperties.com, sign up for the buyers list, and start getting off-market deals in Wisconsin sent to your inbox every Monday morning. And this has been another episode of the Wisconsin Investor Podcast. If you got some value out of this show, subscribe, like, share. The more people that listen to this, the bigger guests we can get, the more guests we can get, and the more value we can bring to you guys here as an audience. So that's it, Frank, man. I appreciate you being on here, and we will see you probably at one of these meetings soon.
All right, Corey. Thank you.
Hey, this has been another episode of the Wisconsin Investor. Thanks for tuning in. If you got some value out of the show, please go like, rate, subscribe, share, do all that fun stuff. And if you're new to investing in Wisconsin and you want to have a conversation with somebody from our team, we would love to have that conversation with you. To do that, just go to our website, wisconsindiscountproperties.com. Hit the contact us form, put a little bit of your info in there, and somebody from our team will reach out and have a conversation, hopefully help you start moving forward in your investing journey here in Wisconsin. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you on the next episode.